What is good, nerds? I'm here to tell you a story. My homebrew world is called Sartheria, and this story is about the miniature I'm painting. Make sure you watch to the end, I got something special going on, so you don't want to miss that. Also, I hope you enjoy, go get yourself some popcorn, go get yourself some snacks, and get ready for a grimdark adventure.
When one departs from the bustling lakeside town of Osberg, following the main road north, some 20 miles, one may find the path. The less attentive traveler may pass through these crossroads without even being aware of its very existence, for no one has voluntarily traveled to Inthok in nearly 2 decades. Rough but dense briar patches and mountain flowers grow, as if in an effort by nature to shield passers-by from what no sane or logical person would wish to remember. Any and all signs pointing to the east were torn down and burned with the rest of the town. One will find the print of no boot, hoof, or wheel even veering from the main road. In fact, the road's shoulders about this area are as overgrown as the path itself. People don't slow down, take breaks, rest, or stop for any reason in the immediate vicinity, for it has been said that the town of Inthok is pure evil. However, since we are not sane nor logical, and exist in a hypothetical void outside of this universe, and can safely observe, may we indulge our darkest curiosity and stray from the main road, through the briars and down the path. For the first several miles, one may think this a ruse. However, shortly past this, any questioning as to the legitimacy of the claims can all be substantiated. The first noticeable disturbance is the smell of sulfur, as if the 2-decade-old fire was still burning today. It starts subtle, but before one knows it, a rag is necessary over the mouth to prevent the imminent and insistent coughing. The next impurity comes in the form of the grass. It lies dead and brown all year long, even through heavy rain. Noteworthy, seeing the rest of the country maintains annual waist-high growth. Third is the constant twilight. Noon or midnight, the faint glow of a setting sun can be seen to the west, but the thick clouds always loom over the valley, and by what the sky tells, time does stand still. Progressing into the town proper, degeneration overtakes the senses as one struggles to unfold the sights before them. Half a dozen dilapidated buildings stand in a circle that, in this modern age, we might deem a cul-de-sac. Upon closer inspection, the boards of these constructions all appear to be severely charred, and while it might be a slight hallucination of a slowly fraying mind, one could swear they still see small embers spit and spat, rising up before extinguishing and returning to earth as dead ash. To understand the downfall of Inthok, one must travel back to that dreadful time 20 winters ago, a time before the fires, and most certainly before the grand evil encapsulated the village and rendered it a place of fear. The briars are cleared, ruts in the road tell the tale of a thriving trade hub slightly off the main path. A weary traveler would see the sign in the crossroads and knew hospitality and a warm meal was only a few miles further. Inthok received quite a few visitors in its heyday, all culminating to the Inthok Inn, which was known throughout Sartheria for its homebrew vegetable stew, possessing a reputation of sweet, savory goodness that travelers could not pass up. However, while the stew was quite delicious indeed, the real showstopper was the bread, baked twice daily. The Finik family prided itself on this culinary masterpiece. There were 4 prominent families in Inthok, totaling 14 residents. Only the Finik family plays into this particular tale, and most notably their daughter, a lively curly-haired youth possessing a wild spirit and always seeking adventure. Her interests align almost exclusively with the wild animals and butterflies of the forest, and almost never with that of the townsfolk or visitors. Occasionally, a particularly interesting person would wander into town, perhaps a well-traveled adventurer or a man of science, and on that occasion she would sit and listen to what they had to say, but usually not for very long, since her attention span for such things were short. As you could imagine, these interests failed to align with those of her parents as well. They wanted her to take over the family business, but she wanted her freedom, not the confines of a bakery wall. Rebellion was her very nature, and in fact, if not for the act of defiance that cost her her supper one rebellious evening, she would have lost her life. Grain is one commodity in short supply around Inthok, and thus must be traded for almost exclusively. The season's crop was approaching harvest, but supplies were dwindling. While most merchants have a certain shiftiness to their nature, the one that arrived on a particular summer's midday was exceptionally shrewd indeed. Despite the blistering noon heat, he arrived adorned in a black, thick woolen cloak. He introduced himself with no name but as a grain merchant from the far west, and brought samples in small burlap sacks. The fool that was Adolf Finik ignored all ill omens of the trade and purchased what equated to 2 months' worth of supplies. Perhaps greed was the final driving force to make the deal that his gut advised against. Perhaps the exquisite smell of the samples. After all, the grain smelled good. Great, even. It didn't matter. The outcome was the same. After all commerce had commenced, the visitor went straight to his room, latched the bolt behind him, and presented himself not once again, despite the delectable kitchen fragrances wafting directly up the staircase and under the first door on the right, in which he occupied. The next morning, the room was vacant, all bed linens were in the exact same place that Mrs. Finik left them, the bed was untouched, the furniture sat unmoved. Outside on the doorstep lie several large stacks of grain completely fulfilling the order. "Huh, guess he'll be back for his gold," muttered Adolf in a confused tone. Had anyone actually seen, or more relevantly heard, a wagon at some point in the night? Even a human-drawn rickshaw would have creaked and groaned, and it could be heard from miles away on a bitterly still night like last night. But alas, the grain sat on the doorstep. Being a man of his word, Adolf stored the grain, but refused to bake with it until it was paid for. Weeks passed. The traveler never came for his gold. A few other travelers wandered through on their way to Ravenwood, most notably for young Nara, a druid by the name of Jarek. This unfortunate soul had the attention of the uninvited Narek for the bulk of his stay, save when her mother removed her kicking and screaming from the dining hall back to the bakery. Months passed. Harvest grew desperately near. All supplies dwindled except for the mysterious burlap sacks of grain. Formality finally gave way to desperation, and the oven smoked once again with the fresh, sweet aroma of culinary perfection that was Finik bread. All feasted well that night except for one 7-year-old Nara, who, despite warning after warning, felt in need to attempt to race the sunset to conclude a whimsical day of sheer nothingness. She arrived home well after dark, having missed supper, but that would have mattered not, for as reprimand to her defiance, her mother had already intended to send her to bed hungry.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the story. There's something I want to talk to you real quick about. I'm looking to build something here, and I'm talking more than just miniatures and stuff made out of wood. I want to build a community of chill people. So, as a token of said community and maybe just like future nostalgia, I want to build a project and I want to include the names of the first 100 subs on that project. If this sounds like something you're interested in, just slap that sub button, and if you're into the first 100, your name will be on it. If you want to subscribe but you don't want to be part of the project, which I don't know why your username would be public, but hey, just send me a message. I won't include it. We're good. Now let's get back to that story. It's gonna get good.
The subtle but continuous tick of a clock is the only thing that can be heard. Eventually, upon realization of its existence, one begins to hone in on this, and subtle transforms to ear-piercing. That is, until replaced by actual ear-piercing, stark and utter horror. Someone help! Help! Oh my god, we need help! Help! Someone! Anyone! An unidentified male voice screams with fierce desperation. The soft twinkle of lanterns flickered to life as citizens came rushing out of the safety of their dwellings and congregated in the town square. Pounding, thrashing, breaking, and screeching could be made out coming from the closest house. The mob approaches, lanterns and torches extended. The door of the house jumps. Someone, or something, is inside beating on it. Creaking and groaning of wood finally give way as an arm thrusts through the crack. Skin is rent from muscle, and the thing inside thrashes more and more violently. Finally, the door gives way. As a house cat would pounce a mouse, the thing was on the throat of the closest man to the door. Blood flew glistening in streams that were once human teeth broke off the neck of the victim. Another in the crowd grasps his stomach and begins to vomit blood. Muscles snap and pop as he too joins the massacre. Those who were able ran and hid, but it didn't matter. Once taken, the curse of the dead transforms the infected victim into an unearthly killing machine. They were all changing one by one. That is, all who consumed the tainted bread. The creature spins everything, moving muscles until they snap, pushing bones until they break. They think nothing, they feel nothing, they exist on pure instinct and an insatiable desire for violence. Nara made it back to the inn, slammed the door, and locked it behind her. Her family was gone. She had watched them turn. The remainder of the town were hunted down like animals. Every few minutes, some poor soul would be found, and although quick, their death screams were most horrific as the army of the undead grew another soldier. The undead mob that was once Nara's closest friends and family surrounded the inn and began to smash and pound their way in. They smelled Nara. Boards creaked and snapped, glass shattered. They were in. Nara ran for the basement in desperation. Rounding the final corner, one of the things thrust its arm through the wall of the kitchen, unable to be bothered by the adjacent doorway. The cellar was shut. Now for the bar. Struggling, Nara managed to lift it in place and let loose a single sigh of relief. But a hasty mind often overlooks what a calm mind would view as an obvious flaw. There was an outside door to the cellar, and it was not locked. Nara's heart sank. The cellar door flew open as the horde of undead poured from the orifice. The next few seconds were as much of a shock to Nara as to the rest of Sartharia. Nara's skin itself began to glow with holy radiance. Her eyes were replaced by stars of golden fire, and the holy nova that followed was a spectacular sight to say the least. Purifying flames of holy light burst from the inn, transmuting the pitch black of night into the golden sunrise of what the gods themselves would find majesty. The fire circled the town, cleansing and purifying, before making its way back to the inn in the form of a vertical beam of sheer magnificence thrusting upwards, as if feeding the sky its next day's light. The event could be seen in both Ravenwood and Osberg, although only the former sent a search party. Within 2 days, word had reached the closest outpost, and a small complement of paladins were sent to investigate. When they arrived, they found 13 burned corpses, stacked neatly in the center of a burning town, and a crying 7-year-old girl, with no recollection of the last 3 days. Nara was taken to the Church of Light, where she remains today, getting to adventure and help people in ways she'd never dreamed. She slightly grew out of her whimsical nature, but never lost her free spirit. From time to time, she may choose to skip rather than walk, if she thinks no one is looking. The official historical archives state Lord Alesson's paladins burned the town and purged whatever unknown evil caused this, but we know the truth. Alas, the official records must be upheld to protect both Sartharia and Nara from the darkness set forth to kill her that very night. An attempt to extinguish one of the brightest candles this age has to offer against the darkness. This evil has not been seen in nearly 500 years, and all but the most elder of elves or dwarves have even heard of the malevolent horror known in the common tongue as the Curse of the Dead.